After the long off-season wait, Kraken hockey is finally back. As long as you're okay with calling whatever that was being back. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back for a third season of Kraken R&R and a third Kraken season in general, where, yes, for the third time, the Kraken do end up losing their season opener, and for the second time, just like the inaugural season, lose it in Vegas, once again giving up 4 goals just like they did in that first ever game. In a lot of ways, actually, a pretty similar game to that first ever game the Kraken played, just with less fight back after they went down 3-0. But real quick, before we get to the game, there are also a couple of differences with the channel, and I don't just mean the subtle differences in the background, if you've noticed that, but also that we have a new Patreon set up for this channel. I've mentioned it at the end of some videos, but this is the first time I'm really going to advertise it towards the beginning of a video, because most of the rewards for that Patreon, at least at this point, do involve these R&Rs, like the ability to vote on the Kraken 3 stars at the end of games. Gonna figure out how to make that happen, as well as voting for end of season rewards for the Kraken and some other stuff. We will also have like behind the scenes content, as well as other things like voting on what videos outside of the R&Rs I do, like which NHL 101 I do next and that type of stuff from time to time when I actually have time to get to those during the Kraken season, which is not always easy to find. But again, there will be a link in the description down below for that Patreon. So if you want to and have the ability to, by no means should you feel obligated to get involved there. But if you do want to and have that chance to be a part of voting for the Kraken 3 stars at the end of every game, when there are games where there's 3 worthy of that, we'll see if we get 3 this game. But voting for that, and again, season rewards and that kind of stuff, and more to come. It's still pretty new, so work in progress, but it's there if you'd like to help out the channel a little bit more than you already are by watching this video, or even liking the video or subscribing if you're not already. There's other ways to help out the channel that don't involve money, but again, it's a new thing and a lot of the benefits do involve these R&Rs, so I thought I'd mention it here. But it's enough stalling. We do have a game to get to that actually did start out pretty well for the Kraken. For the first 7-10 minutes of the game, they really were the better team, and throughout the game, at least as far as analytics are concerned, the Kraken held their own, and depending on how different areas measure expected goals, the Kraken actually outplayed the Golden Knights at 5-on-5. Now, to be perfectly honest, as the rest of the game went on, I'm not sure that I would necessarily agree with that. And then there's also special teams that really reared its ugly head again. Anyway, we'll get to that as this game goes along. Again, at least through the first 7 minutes of this game, it was all Kraken as they outshot the Golden Knights 5-0 through the first 7+ minutes. Fortunately, when that first shot came for Vegas, it went into the back of the Kraken net, really without too much Grubauer could do about it. It's a defensive lapse by the Kraken through the neutral zone and then a 3-on-2 rush against the second or third pair defense for the Kraken. I don't know which is which, but it's Schultz and Dumoulin. And while Schultz in his own right didn't really do a ton to help here, as both of them kind of just get backed up to the Kraken net without giving much of a resistance to the 3 attacking Golden Knights players, it leads to a tic-tac-toe pass, and it's Dumoulin who just lets his guy go right around him, pretty much like he wasn't there in the first place. And that pass across Grubauer's face right in front of him doesn't leave him with too much more he can do other than try to make a spectacular save. He's not able to do that, and Stevenson, who actually got the game-winning goal on a kick-in in the first ever game for the Kraken, also in Vegas, gets them on the board first here. Again, a tough start to the Kraken career for Brian Dumoulin, and generally that pair of Dumoulin and Schultz, who, now that I think about it, they have the old Fleury brother numbers, because Cale Fleury used to be number 8. Dumoulin took his number. He's still with the team, but he's in the AHL. And then Hayden Fleury used to be number 4. Anyway, hardly matters. Dumoulin gets completely, not really walked, but he gets kind of turnstiled as Stevenson goes around him to score that goal, and Schultz didn't help a ton. Either way, it looked like the type of sloppy play on a rush that we saw from the Kraken in that inaugural season, and it ended up in the back of the net. And then almost immediately afterwards, Vegas gets 2 more shots on goal, so while they didn't get a shot for over 7 minutes to start the game, within less than a minute, they've got 3 shots and 2 pretty dangerous ones. Grubauer is able to make both of these saves, including one that wasn't as spectacular of a save as he would have had to make on the first goal that Vegas scored, but it was still a pretty nice save on a shot from the slot, as the Kraken really were not the team in their own end of the ice that they were all throughout last year. Again, it's one game, we don't want to overreact to it too much, but they were allowing Vegas to get a lot of offense going through the center of the ice in the defensive end, where last year they were pretty good all season long at keeping play to the outside when they were in their end of the ice. The only weak spot being right up around the net, and it is right up around the net where Vegas ends up making it 2-0 from, on the other side of a second Kraken power play, where they actually had a power play when it was still 0-0, but yeah, the power play, we'll get to that. The time's coming. It's not yet. The Kraken go 0 for 2 on the power play. The second one did look a little bit better, but after that comes to an end a couple minutes later, Vegas ends up scoring when Brandon Tanev, who had a tough game in a couple of different ways, but this one is self-inflicted. He actually makes a decent defensive play by intercepting a pass from behind the net out in front to a guy in the slot, but then tries to take the puck down behind the net, sees Marchessault, and instead of deciding to then fling the puck over to the boards or hold on to the puck, or even pass it to one of the wide open teammates that he has on either side of him, he instead tries to dump the puck behind the net, and Marchessault just sticks his stick out in front of that pass. It goes off of the tip of Marchessault's stick and into the net. Live action, it actually looked like Tanev just straight up put it into the net past Grubauer. And look, if you want to nitpick Grubauer here, yeah, he probably could have been up against the post like you should be, but at the same time, your teammate has the puck in front of you with nobody really around him. There's no reason to expect that he's going to make a boneheaded decision like that that's going to end up with the puck in the back of the net. So yeah, this one just straight up on Brandon Tanev, and it's 2-0 Golden Knights just like that. And it is at that point, with about 5 minutes left in the period, where Vegas really takes over for the rest of this period and puts in a good effort to make it 3-0 going into the first intermission. The defense does shore up a little bit for the Kraken, and Grubauer makes a couple more pretty nice saves. Not quite as nice as the one he made after the first Vegas goal, but he's looking good. Again, the 2 goals that went in, I would say he was certainly not the main person to blame for either one of them, but at the end of the day, they are his stats, and 2 of the first 10 shots went in for the Golden Knights. That's just the life of a goaltender. It might not always be your fault, but it is going to look that way in a stat sheet. Either way, while it's certainly not an ideal start being down 2-0 after 1, the Kraken did play like the better team for the majority of the period, and if they're going to be anything like the team they were last year, they can definitely score in bunches and out of nowhere, so this game is far from over. It gets a little bit closer to over, though, right away in the third period, as within a couple of minutes, Vegas makes it 3-0 on a second breakaway for Barbashev. The first one, Adam Larsson was able to shut down, but this time Barbashev kind of catches Vince Dunn sleeping a bit in the neutral zone, and while Dunn almost catches back up to him to prevent the shot, Barbashev is able to get the shot off and beats Grubauer over his shoulder and into the top corner. It's a very nice shot by Barbashev while being contested by Dunn. Still, he should have never had the breakaway chance in the first place. And yeah, now it's 3-0 early in the second, and while there still is plenty of time left, it's gonna be a lot harder to come back from that. Granted, if we're going back to that first ever game for the Kraken in that inaugural season, when they started that year in Vegas, they went down 3-0 in that game as well, with 2 goals in the first and 1 to start out the third period, and then they came all the way back to tie that with a goal from Ryan Donato, then Jared McCann, and then Morgan Geekie to start the third period. So heck, if the inaugural season Kraken can come back on the Golden Knights, then there's no reason that this Kraken team, which is better than that Kraken team was, couldn't come back and do the same and maybe even end up winning the game. Plus, 2 of the 3 same guys that scored in that game for the Kraken ended up scoring today. The problem is the guy that got that first ever goal for the Kraken in Ryan Donato got his goal today for a different team as he now plays for the Blackhawks. He's actually now playing on a line with Connor Bedard, so it could be a quietly pretty good season for Donato if he ends up staying on that line. And actually, while I'm on this tangent, it also means that Beniers and Bedard now have a similarity in the fact that their first ever NHL point was an assist on a Ryan Donato goal, as Bedard got a secondary assist on Donato's goal to open up the scoring for Chicago, Donato scoring his first game with another team. And Beniers, of course, had his first ever point in the NHL being that primary assist on that insanely beautiful no-look pass across the offensive zone to Donato against Calgary at the end of that inaugural season. Anyway, tangent aside, Donato isn't here with the Kraken to score, and while the Kraken did nearly make it 3-1 a little bit before, they ended up making it 3-1 as Alexiak and Borgen almost connected for a D-to-D goal side goal. Borgen just isn't able to get the blade of his stick on the ice and keep it strong enough to put the goal on net. It was there. A beautiful pass from Alexiak through the crease across the face of Adin Hill. And if Borgen just has his blade a little bit stronger there, it's in the net, wide open shot, but instead it goes a little bit wide. So they missed the opportunity there. But a couple minutes later, the Kraken back into the offensive end. And this time it's a much more likely duo that ends up scoring here. Honestly, I feel like Beniers kind of deserved an assist, but I don't think they gave him one, as Beniers wins a battle in the corner. Eberle ends up with the puck behind the net, and he actually tries to put it across the crease out in front to Schultz on the far side, but it goes off of Marchessault right to McCann in the slot, and McCann buries it. He's not going to miss too many chances like that, right into the top corner, actually off the top bar, I think, maybe even, past Hill, who was fantastic in this game. Adin Hill picking up right where he left off in the playoffs, unfortunately for the Kraken, as he stood on his head all night long for Vegas. But he gets this one past him, and McCann, for the third straight season for the Kraken, scores in this season opener. Unfortunately, however, for the Kraken, instead of being able to build momentum off of that goal and try to get things a little bit closer, they give Vegas their first power play of the game as Wemberg goes to the box for tripping, which, if we're being perfectly honest, I think this was a bit of an even-up call, as it was not much of a trip from Wemberg, who actually made a pretty nice defensive play on a rush chance by Vegas. Either way, it gets called, Wemberg goes to the box, and the Kraken to the kill, where Vegas gets a pretty good chance right away. Mark Stone probably should have scored on Grubauer. He definitely had some empty net there, but couldn't lift it over Grubauer's pad after Grubauer had made a save and let the rebound to Stone. Either way, the Kraken stop that thanks to the Grubauer save, and then do kill off the rest of this power play. So while the power play was ineffective for the Kraken all night, the penalty kill was actually pretty good. So, I mean, at least the penalty kill picked up where it left off as well. But yeah, the other side of that is that the power play also picked up where it left off in being completely ineffective and disorganized. So although they, I guess, did get momentum out of a power play that comes just a couple minutes out of this Vegas power play, the Kraken don't end up scoring again, and then Vegas gets another power play at the end of the period, which Seattle kills off again. So teams just kind of trade power plays there throughout the second half of the second period, and we go to the third with Vegas leading still 3-1. And yeah, I guess that's where we break that consistency and similarities with that inaugural season, is it's no longer a one-goal game like it was going into the third period of that first ever game. Although I probably should mention before moving on that a downside to the two successful kills for the Kraken was that early on in the first kill, Belmar blocked a shot off of, I think, the inside of his arm where there really isn't a lot of padding, ended up going down the tunnel and did not end up returning to the game until midway through the third period. So it was at least good to see him back out there, but it took quite a while for him to get out there. Either way, hopefully that's a good sign that he's able to keep going here in Nashville in a couple of days and on as we go. But soreness the second day after something like that could be the worst. Either way, it would certainly be good if he's back, because one guy who very well might not be back for the Kraken, depending on how what I would have to imagine his concussion protocol goes for him, would be Brandon Tanev, who, like I said, had a tough night in a couple of ways. One was basically putting the puck in the Kraken net in the first period, and the second was taking quite possibly the dirtiest hit against a Kraken player that there has been in, again, the short history of the franchise, but ever to this point. And yes, I'm including the Myers hit on Beniers, the hit that Schultz took earlier last season, or even the hit that McCann took from Makar in the playoffs. Now, especially the Beniers and McCann ones, we get a little bit more worked up about, because that's the star rookie and leading scorer of the team in the playoffs. But this hit on Tanev, there is absolutely no excuse for, where, there really wasn't that much excuse for the Myers hit, but you can kind of make a half-hearted argument for the Makar one. Even at that, this is easily, I would say, the dirtiest hit we've ever seen against a Kraken player. Okay, I don't know, maybe easily is a bit of an exaggeration, and there probably is some recency bias worked in here, as this one did literally just happen, and it's been a while since those other hits. Plus, with the one, especially the one on Beniers, but even the one on McCann, the puck wasn't anywhere near either of them. In McCann's case, it was out of play, still in his vicinity, but out of play. And then Beniers, the puck was nowhere near him whatsoever. Meanwhile, with this hit, the puck is coming to Tanev when he receives the hit. And like both of those other hits, he does not see the hit coming whatsoever. But the clincher for me on why I'm saying this is the dirtiest hit on a Kraken player ever is because this one, unlike those other two on Beniers and McCann, while they did both lead to concussions and head injuries, this one is directly to the head of Tanev. It doesn't cause his head to hit something else, causing the injury, which is still bad. But this one is a shoulder directly to the head from a player he doesn't see coming, who skates into the hit. And again, the puck wasn't even on Tanev's stick yet. It's just on its way to him. I mean, this is the best screenshot I can get of the hit. You can find a replay of it, but there is really no excuse I can see other than he's probably just trying to rub Tanev off of the puck as it gets to him and give him a little bit of a shoulder check. But if he's just trying to give him a shoulder check, he misses the mark badly and ends up hitting Tanev right in the side of the head and chin. Tanev doesn't really look like he is knocked out necessarily, but he does twist awkwardly to the ice and then stays down for quite a while. There wasn't the body freezes or anything like that, like clear signs of him being out, but it still is almost certainly a concussion of some kind, and whether or not he clears protocol before the next game or even the one after that for matter is very much an unknown at this point. Now, I suppose at least the one piece of good news with this hit, as opposed to at least the ones on Beniers and McCann, because I think the Schultz one had the same in-game outcome, is a 5-minute major was properly awarded as well as a game misconduct, so Howden gets kicked out of the game and will likely serve a suspension because it was awarded a major, unlike the hits on Beniers and McCann, which were both minor penalties that definitely added to the outrage in both of those cases. And this, again, will likely lead to a suspension, probably even a multiple game suspension for Howden. That having been said, it's not like Kraken fans have any reason whatsoever to have any faith in the Department of Player Safety, especially considering that, well, both the Schultz and Beniers hit resulted in no discipline whatsoever for the players that laid those hits. And while Makar did serve one game, and it was a playoff game, so it's somewhat impactful, it also meant that the best forward for the Kraken was out of the playoffs for even longer. So, at least for the Kraken, as we do focus back down into this game, while it's not great that they're missing Tanev now, it does mean that down 2 goals early in the third, they now have the chance that they need to get back into this game with that 5 minutes of power play that won't be interrupted, and they can score as many times as they want. Unfortunately, to score as many times as you want, you have to be able to score in the first place. And, well, this Kraken power play does not look like it's going to be doing that anytime soon, as they, in those 5 minutes, get 2, maybe 3 shots on goal, and really only 1 particularly good scoring opportunity, as Yamamoto got the puck net front and almost got it through the 5-hole of Hill, but just isn't quite able to make it happen. Again, Hill had a fantastic game, and a lot of the reason the Kraken end up losing this one and the score looks the way it does is because of Adin Hill. But it's still, regardless of how well Adin Hill is playing, the Kraken end up having 11 minutes of power play time in this game and have nothing to show for it. 11 minutes, 5 of which is a major, and you couldn't score once. And honestly, that's bad enough in its own right. You're not going to win a lot of games when, again, not to sound like a broken record, you don't score in 11 minutes of power play in a single game, with 5 of it being a major. But the Kraken really didn't even get that close to scoring in any of those chances. Yeah, they had the one where Yamamoto almost scored during this major, and honestly, the second power play kind of looked like one that you could wave off as they at least got set up and had a couple of chances, and if you play a power play like that, you're going to score your fair share. But the first power play that they had, and the one in the second period, and most of this major, might as well not have happened. They were better off just playing 5-on-5, because apparently this is a better team at 5-on-5 than they are on the power play. Fortunately, they're a pretty good team at 5-on-5, but on the power play, they're completely useless. They look like they just look like 5 random dudes thrown out there on the ice to just skate around and vaguely throw the puck at each other occasionally when they don't feel like shooting it themselves. Never mind shooting it themselves, because they hardly shot the puck on net at all. 2 of the power plays, I don't think they got a single shot on goal. So I suppose in that respect, it would actually probably be better for the Kraken if they just threw 5 random dudes out on the ice and told them to shoot the puck whenever they have the chance. Because let's be honest, at least at that point, you get some shots on goal, which they haven't been doing. And yes, this is just one game, even if it was 11 minutes of power play in one game, it was just one game of 82, so let's not overreact too much. But at the same time, this is largely the same team we saw last season, and last season's power play was not very good. So excuse me if I don't have a lot of faith that this is going to get too much better as the season goes along. Still a long season, so it could happen, but this is about as bad of a start on the power play as you could possibly ask for. Other than giving up a shorthanded goal, which they nearly didn't, but that would be pretty much the only way this could have possibly been worse. And then, just to rub salt into the wound of the 11th failed minute of Kraken power play, literally the second it comes to an end, the Kraken go to the box, and Vegas goes to their third power play of the game, which fortunately, the flip side, like I said earlier on, to the Kraken power play being completely useless and basically just killing off clock that they couldn't afford to lose because they were behind for most of this game, is that the penalty kill was also very good and prevented Vegas from extending the lead, at least during special teams. So the Kraken kill off that one, and then, yeah, it's starting to get to desperation time, especially when, as you start to think about when the Kraken are going to pull Grubauer with coming on almost 3 minutes left in the game, right around 3:45 I think was left. It's another power play as Schwartz gets caught for a high stick. He goes to the box. Vegas is going to, even if they don't score, which they didn't again, the Kraken penalty kill goes 4 for 4 in killing off Vegas power plays, but it still kills off 2 more minutes of clock, which only leaves a minute 40 for the Kraken to try and score with an empty net twice during. They're not able to do that. Jack Eichel finds the empty net. He's very good at finding the empty net. He's very good at finding the net in general, but he finds it here to make it 4-1. And that's where the game would end. So then, as far as big takeaways from this game are concerned, obviously the futility almost seems generous, but complete absence of a power play is definitely a problem when you spend 11 minutes on the power play. It almost makes the special teams feel like the difference in this game, even though neither team scored on the power play, because the penalty kill for the Kraken killed all 8 minutes of Vegas power play. But yeah, when you don't score with that much time on the power play, you're not going to win games. If you have that much time, you might win some games against bad teams, but against a team like Vegas, you're just not going to win when you can't capitalize on that much odd man advantage opportunities. So the Kraken need to figure something out there. I just don't know where it's going to happen. And again, we've got pretty much the same personnel out there as we saw all of last season. Burakovsky should help at some point, being that he's now healthy, but he was healthy for the first half of last season. And while they had kind of one spurt in January, I want to say, where they were good, that's pretty much all this power play has had for the 2 years that this team has been around, is occasional spurts of being good. And then we think they have something figured out, and it becomes immediately obvious that it was just a little hot streak and it goes away and they go back to being terrible. Aside from that, I mean, it honestly just kind of looked like a sloppy early season game from the Kraken. Someone in the live stream chat said it looked like the inaugural season Kraken, which in a lot of the ways it did. They just didn't really look that coherent for most of the time when it came to passing or transition, which was a strength of the team last year, was that transition play, especially from defense to offense, which just really wasn't there in this game, at least not consistently anyway. They did play pretty well in those first 10 to 15 minutes of the first period, but aside from that, it was very inconsistent at the very least for the Kraken in this game. And yeah, advanced stats wise, and heck, even shots on goal, which is not an advanced stat, definitely point to this being a pretty even game at 5-on-5 between the two teams. And if you can hang with the defending champs in their arena right after they hung the banner, and there's definitely a lot of energy in that arena after putting up that Stanley Cup banner, you'll take that. Like, I think it was a well-played game in that respect, that the Kraken were able to hang with them at 5-on-5. And at the end of the day, the penalty kill was very good. They went 4 for 4, killing off Vegas power plays. So if you can be good at 5-on-5 and make your special teams a wash, even if the power play is terrible, if you cannot allow goals the other way, then you're going to give yourself a good chance. Vegas is just a good team, and they are able to pounce on the few mistakes that the Kraken did make. And look, ultimately, it is just game 1 of 82, and it's against a team that was going to be hard to beat, especially given the circumstances around the game in the first place. So while it could have been played better, it's definitely not the end of the world. There's still a long season ahead of them, the Kraken that is, And like I pointed out, unfortunately, at the beginning of the video, the Kraken are now 0 for 3 when it comes to season openers. Technically 0-2-1 because they did lose in overtime against Anaheim at the start of last season. But even though they lost it to the team that finished last in the league in their first game last season, they still went to the playoffs with 100 points. So this is by no means the end of the Kraken season, and by all means, the power play could get something figured out. I'm just not particularly holding my breath for it. And I guess the upside as far as comparisons to that inaugural season is concerned, while they did lose that first game in Vegas, they won their next game in Nashville, and the Kraken will have a chance to repeat that as they go to Nashville on Thursday. Of course, with that being said, if they do win that game on Thursday in Nashville, it would be really nice if the similarities to the inaugural season would just stop right there, because, yeah, this is going to be a really long season if they only get 60 points by the end of it, and much more disappointing than that inaugural season was. Either way, certainly not expecting that to happen. There's a lot of fun games ahead of this team. This just was not one of them. But we'll be back on Thursday for more. As far as Kraken 3 stars are concerned, I honestly don't know if I'm going to find 3. I don't think Grubauer played as bad as his numbers are, but I certainly don't think he played well enough necessarily to get a star. Adam Larsson, I think I'm going to give the first star. I felt like Adam Larsson had a pretty good game in this one. Jared McCann scored a goal, so I'll give him second star. And he also, the first line definitely had spurts. Really, when the Kraken had pressure, it was that first line, and it kind of felt like Bjorkstrand had some of that as well. He just wasn't as good in the defensive end. So I'll go Adam Larsson first star, Jared McCann second star, and I'm on the fence about Matty Beniers. It is the first game of the season, so what the heck, I'll be generous here. I'll go Matty Beniers third star. So Larsson first, McCann second, Beniers third. I guess I would say that Vince Dunn is worth mentioning as well, at least offensively anyway. I'd actually probably give him a star if it wasn't for the one defensive gaffe that he had, and it was a pretty bad one, letting Barbashev get past him for that breakaway on the third Vegas goal. But as always, I'd love to know what your thoughts are down in the comment section below, how you felt about this game. Obviously a bit of a disappointing outcome, but it was the first game of the season, and it's fun to have the Kraken back, especially after how fun they were last season. So hopefully we get back to that starting in this game in Nashville. Again, reminder that if you want to be a part of the 3 stars and figuring out who those are going to be after every game and help me figure out if there should even be 3 in the first place, then the Patreon will help with that. And otherwise, yeah, see you in the next one. So if you made it to this point, thank you very much for watching. If you did like or enjoy this video, there are buttons for that kind of stuff down below to help support the channel. Until next time, stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken!